And David Ignatius is a columnist with the Washington Post. David, good to see you today. David, can you hear me?
Yes, I hear you fine.
Okay, so let me ask you, when we're talking about the reaction on Capitol Hill and the fact that this now goes to Congress, they get an opportunity to look over the details, but already so many, especially Republican leaders, are expressing skepticism. What will the White House have to do to win their support?
Well, the Republicans' skepticism has been general and in many cases rhetorical, and the White House began with the president's statement this morning and Secretary Kerry's statement from Vienna. Other administration officials I've been talking to privately since then have been responding in very specific detail about the terms of this agreement. And I think we're going to have a period now of several months of looking at the fine print, and the president will continue to make his case that compared to any realistic alternative, this deal will provide better security, not just for the United States, but for Israel and other countries in the region. That process began. All of us now will look very, very carefully at the 80-plus pages of text and look at how the inspections procedures will work, how the so-called snapback sanctions will work. What about the timetable for lifting the embargo on Iranian purchases of weapons, Iranian ballistic missile development? So the details, I think, are the next phase of this debate, and that's just beginning.
But it seems like John Kerry and the European Union sitting at the table pushed hard to get concessions from Iran. They worked hard, 18 days of arduous negotiations to get to this deal. It's not that anyone was going into the table looking for this to be an easy fix, but is there any deal that would have had Republicans rejoicing and saying, yes, this is historic, we're absolutely going to back it?
I don't think so. I think that that is basically impossible to imagine. So I think that was never really in the cards. What I see as somebody who's been trying to follow this carefully is a change over the last 2 weeks. The Iranians, with their supreme leader Ayatollah Khamenei 2 weeks ago, introduced some significant additional demands, saying that inspections wouldn't be allowed at any Iranian military facilities, that the IAEA was not allowed to inspect and sign off on Iranian compliance, other things that the supreme leader said. They appear this morning, as I hear Secretary Kerry and the President, to have walked those back. In other words, a more moderate position prevailed, I think because the U.S. made clear it was prepared to walk away from the table if Khamenei's version of this deal prevailed.
What does it say about Iranian President Hassan Rouhani and his push to help Iran rejoin the diplomatic community, to reestablish relationships in the global community, and his ability to get that done?
I think it tells us that Rouhani is stronger than we might have suspected relative to Ayatollah Khamenei, the supreme leader. What it really tells us, and I think this is the point I'd make for your viewers, there's a political factor in Iran that Americans who don't visit the country often miss. Iranians passionately, I almost want to say desperately, want to connect with the rest of the world. They have been in isolation really since the revolution in 1979. The sanctions in recent years that were imposed added additional costs, but it's really this sense of being separated from a world that most Iranians want to be part of, that's been painful for them. That's why the reaction today, from everything we can tell, is jubilation. There are some hardliners who are very upset, who are unhappy about dealing with the great Satan. There are still people who chant death to America in the streets, but that in no way characterizes most Iranians. And the reactions of those Iranians who respond so positively to this deal has got to check some of the hardliners. They have to be careful that they will undermine a deal that most Iranians seem to like.
We're getting strong reaction from Israel today. Benjamin Netanyahu says this is a mistake of historic proportions. He predicts that this gives Iran access to hundreds of billions of dollars that will then fund their aggression and their support for terror. What does this do to the region? What does it do to Saudi Arabia and to other Gulf states if Iran now has more freedom and fewer sanctions?
I think it's proper to look at those two issues on separate tracks. The Middle East is being torn apart by war, and additional instability caused by Iran with more money to spend on these wars in Syria, in Iraq, in Yemen. That's a dangerous prospect. I think that the sensible response is that it has to be met on its own terms, that good policies to combat Iranian aggression should go forward, and indeed that's increasingly been something that the administration has been trying to focus on. What President Obama said this morning is, however serious these problems of Iranian aggression, bad Iranian behavior in the Middle East are, they would be worse if Iran was continuing on its path to having a nuclear weapon soon. So taking that out of the picture for 10 years, and that's what he claims this deal will do, it makes it easier to deal with the problems of regional aggression. They're not going to go away, and I think, again, people need to understand the Middle East is, the mess, the bitter internecine warfare in the Middle East is not going to stop because of this deal. The deal may make it easier to address it in a forceful way.
David Ignatius, columnist for the Washington Post, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.